Become unrecognizable in 1 week. Not louder, not richer, not praised. Unrecognizable in discipline, in focus, in self-respect. 1 week is enough to break the illusion that you need more time. Time is not the problem. Permission is. You have been waiting for a moment that will never arrive because moments are created by action, not patience. For 7 days, stop negotiating with the weaker version of yourself. That voice that asks for comfort, delay, and excuses has had control for too long. This week is about taking it back, not aggressively, quietly, with rules you follow even when no one is watching. Wake up earlier than you want, not because early mornings are magical, but because resistance is honest. If you can overcome yourself at the start of the day, the rest of the day follows. Do not reach for your phone. Do not absorb other people's priorities before establishing your own. Sit in silence. Let the mind complain. Do not respond. Awareness without reaction is strength. Move your body daily, even when tired, especially when tired. This is not about fitness. It is about obedience. You are teaching yourself that feelings do not decide action. When the body learns discipline, the mind follows. Eat with intention. Remove what weakens you. Not forever, just for 1 week. Cravings are not emergencies. They are habits asking to be fed. When you say no, you reclaim control. Control over appetite spills into control over thought, emotion, and behavior. Cut distractions. No scrolling to escape discomfort. No noise to avoid boredom. Boredom is the space where clarity appears. When stimulation is removed, focus sharpens. You begin to see how much of your life was spent avoiding yourself. Work deeply. 1 task at a time. No multitasking. No excuses. Depth produces quality. Quality produces pride. Pride restores self-respect. Self-respect changes how you carry yourself in the world. Speak less. Observe more. Stop explaining your goals. Stop seeking approval. Let your actions speak in silence. Silence gathers power. The quieter you become, the more precise your actions are. Every evening, reflect honestly. Did you do what you said you would do today? Not perfectly. Honestly. Integrity is rebuilt 1 kept promise at a time. This is how identity shifts. Not through affirmation, but through evidence. By the 3rd day, resistance will intensify. Your old habits will fight for survival. They will tell you this is extreme, unnecessary, unrealistic. Do not argue. Do not analyze. Continue. Resistance is proof that change is occurring. By the 5th day, something will feel different. Your mind will be steadier, your posture stronger, your decisions cleaner. You will realize you are not exhausted. You were distracted. You were leaking energy through indecision and impulse. By the 7th day, you will not need motivation. You will have momentum. You will see clearly who you become when structure replaces chaos. You will understand that confidence is not a feeling, but a result of keeping your word to yourself. The world may not applaud you. That is good. This week is not for display. It is for alignment. When your inner order shifts, the outer world will respond in time. Not because you demand it, but because consistency is impossible to ignore. You do not need a new personality. You need fewer excuses. You do not need inspiration. You need obedience. You do not need more time. You need 1 week without lying to yourself. 7 days. No drama. No comfort. No audience. Just discipline applied quietly until the version of you that doubts, delays, and avoids no longer recognizes who you have become. Change does not begin with motivation, it begins with obedience to small rules you set for yourself. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls with sleep, praise, weather, and circumstance. Obedience is structural. It exists regardless of how you feel. When motivation disappears, obedience remains. That is why most people start strong and fade quickly. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for energy to arrive before action. But real change is built by acting before energy, not after it. Small rules are not impressive. They do not excite the ego. They are simple, repetitive, and often boring. Wake up at the same time. Make your bed. Drink water before touching your phone. Move your body for 20 minutes. Read 10 pages. Sit in silence. These actions look insignificant, but they are not. They are proof of authority. Every time you follow a rule you set for yourself, you reinforce one powerful identity. Someone who keeps their word. Without that identity, no amount of ambition survives. Most people live under invisible rules they did not choose. They wake when they feel like it. They eat when they crave. They react when emotions spike. They rest when tired and quit when uncomfortable. These are still rules, just poorly chosen ones. Obedience already exists in their life, but it is obedience to impulse instead of intention. The shift is not from chaos to discipline. The shift is from unconscious obedience to conscious obedience. Small rules work because they remove negotiation. When you rely on motivation, every action becomes a debate. Should I go today or tomorrow? Should I push or rest? Should I focus or scroll? Debate drains energy. Rules conserve it. When the rule is clear, the mind stops arguing. Action becomes automatic. Automatic action is where consistency lives. Consistency is where transformation hides. People misunderstand discipline. They think it is harsh, restrictive, or punishing. True discipline is gentle but firm. It does not shout. It does not threaten. It simply repeats the same expectation every day. When you miss it, discipline does not insult you. It asks you to return. This is why small rules matter. Large rules invite rebellion. Small rules invite cooperation. Obedience to small rules builds self-trust. Self-trust is more valuable than confidence. Confidence depends on results. Self-trust depends on behavior. When you trust yourself, fear loses power. Doubt weakens. Procrastination has less space to breathe. You stop needing external pressure because internal order has been established. This is also why change feels uncomfortable at first. Your old identity was built on broken promises. Your nervous system adapted to inconsistency. When you suddenly introduce order, resistance appears. Not because the rule is wrong, but because the system is unfamiliar. Most people misinterpret this discomfort as a sign to stop. In reality, it is proof that change has begun. Small rules compound quietly. One disciplined morning improves the next decision. One controlled meal sharpens awareness. One completed workout strengthens resolve. None of these moments feel life-changing in isolation. But together, they form momentum. Momentum is not loud, it is steady. And once momentum exists, motivation becomes unnecessary. Obedience also creates humility. You stop chasing dramatic breakthroughs and start respecting the process. You stop asking how long it will take and start asking what must be done today. This grounds you. It removes fantasy. It places your attention on what is within reach instead of what is impressive. People often ask for freedom, but they resist rules. This is the contradiction that keeps them stuck. Freedom is not the absence of structure. Freedom is the result of structure. When your day has rules, your mind is free from chaos. When your habits are clear, your emotions stabilize. When your actions are predictable, your results become predictable too. The rules must be yours. Borrowed discipline rarely lasts. When rules are imposed externally, obedience turns into resentment. When rules are chosen internally, obedience becomes self-respect. Start small enough that failure feels unnecessary. Not easy, but reasonable. The goal is not to test your limits. The goal is to rebuild trust between intention and action. Over time, these small acts reshape identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who does. The language changes. The posture changes. The way you respond to pressure changes. This is not because life became easier, but because you became more ordered. Eventually, motivation returns, but now it is different. It is no longer required to start. It arrives as a byproduct of movement. Action creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence fuels motivation. But the cycle only starts with obedience. If you want to change your life, stop searching for the feeling that makes action possible. Build rules that make action inevitable. Follow them on good days and bad days. Follow them when no one is watching. Follow them especially when the voice in your head suggests delay. This is how discipline becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. 1 week is enough to expose who is in control, you or your impulses. 7 days without excuses, without negotiation, without escape is more than enough time for the truth to surface. People believe they need months or years to change, but what they really need is a short period without lies. A week removes the mask. It strips away the stories you tell yourself about who you are and replaces them with evidence of how you actually live. Impulses thrive in comfort and distraction. They survive because they are rarely challenged directly. You tell yourself you will start later, after rest, after motivation, after the right moment. But delay is an impulse wearing a reasonable face. When you commit to 1 week of discipline, you remove the space where impulse hides. There is no later. There is only today, repeated 7 times. The first day reveals resistance. The body wants what it is used to. The mind reaches automatically for stimulation, pleasure, and ease. You feel restless, irritated, slightly anxious. This is not weakness. This is withdrawal. You are witnessing how dependent your system has become on comfort. Most people stop here and call it self-care. In reality, it is self-avoidance. The second day reveals negotiation. You begin to bargain with yourself. You look for loopholes. You reduce standards. You justify shortcuts. This is the impulse trying to regain control through logic. It sounds reasonable. It sounds intelligent. But it is still avoidance. Discipline is not destroyed by pain. It is destroyed by rationalization. The third day reveals fatigue. Not physical exhaustion, but decision fatigue. Your mind feels heavy because it is no longer allowed to drift. Awareness is tiring for an undisciplined system. This is where identity cracks. You start to see how often you rely on autopilot, how often you act without choosing. This awareness is uncomfortable, but it is essential. By the 4th day, something shifts. The rules are no longer new. The structure begins to settle. You still feel resistance, but it has less authority. The impulses are quieter. They still appear, but they no longer feel urgent. This is the moment many people misinterpret as success and relax. That relaxation is another impulse. Discipline does not require intensity, but it does require consistency. The fifth day reveals power. Not excitement, not pride, but stability. You move through tasks with less friction. You stop asking how you feel before acting. You act and feelings adjust. This is when control becomes visible. You realize that impulses were never commands. They were suggestions you accepted without question. The sixth day reveals clarity. Your mind becomes less noisy. Not silent, but orderly. You see patterns clearly. You notice which behaviors drain you and which ones strengthen you. This clarity does not come from thinking more. It comes from removing unnecessary behavior. When impulse loses control, perception sharpens. By the seventh day, you understand something fundamental. You were never lacking willpower. You were lacking boundaries. Impulses filled the space where structure was absent. When structure arrived, they had nowhere to dominate. This realization is humbling. It removes blame, but it also removes excuses. Control does not mean suppression. It does not mean becoming rigid or emotionless. Control means choice. It means the ability to pause before reacting, to observe a desire without immediately obeying it, to feel discomfort without escaping it. This capacity is not built through theory. It is built through exposure. 1 week of intentional living is exposure therapy for impulse. Most people live reactively. They respond to notifications, cravings, moods, and external demands. They call this normal life. But normal life keeps them scattered, tired, and unsatisfied. When you remove reactivity for even a short period, you feel how much energy was being leaked. Time stretches. Focus deepens. The day feels fuller, not busier. The reason 1 week works is because it is short enough to feel possible and long enough to reveal patterns. You cannot hide from yourself in 7 days. The excuses you use lose credibility. The habits you thought were harmless show their cost. The discipline you thought you lacked proves to be available. After the week, you are no longer guessing who is in control. You have evidence. You know how you respond under structure. You know where you resist. You know what impulses dominate when rules are unclear. This knowledge is power. Not dramatic power, but practical power. You do not need to become perfect. You need to become honest. A single week lived deliberately is more honest than years lived on autopilot. It shows you the gap between who you say you want to be and who you are willing to act as. That gap is not closed with motivation. It is closed with repeated choice. 7 days will not complete your transformation, but it will expose the truth. And once the truth is exposed, it cannot be unseen. From that point forward, every choice carries awareness. Every impulse reveals itself, and control stops being an abstract idea and becomes a daily practice. Silence, structure, and repetition rebuild identity faster than inspiration. Inspiration is loud and brief. It arrives in moments of emotion, gives you a vision of who you could be, then disappears when effort is required. Identity is not built in emotional spikes. It is built in quiet, controlled environments where attention is directed, not scattered. Silence removes noise, structure removes confusion, and repetition removes doubt. Silence is uncomfortable because it exposes what distraction hides. When there is no noise, no constant input, no digital stimulation, the mind turns inward. Thoughts surface that were buried under activity. Regrets, fears, impatience, ambition, and unresolved tension all rise. Most people escape at this point. They reach for sound, conversation, entertainment, anything to avoid being alone with their internal state. But identity cannot be rebuilt while you are running from yourself. Silence is where self-observation begins, and self-observation is the foundation of change. In silence, you notice patterns. You see how often the mind jumps ahead, replays the past, or creates unnecessary urgency. You notice how reactive you are, how easily attention is hijacked. This awareness is not meant to judge. It is meant to inform. You cannot correct what you cannot see. Silence sharpens perception, and perception creates choice. Structure gives direction to that choice. Without structure, awareness becomes overwhelming. You see everything but change nothing. Structure organizes effort. It answers simple but powerful questions. When do I wake up? When do I work? When do I rest? When do I train? When do I reflect? Structure reduces the number of decisions you need to make. This is critical because decision fatigue is one of the greatest enemies of consistency. Many people resist structure because they believe it limits freedom. In reality, structure protects energy. When your day has shape, you do not waste mental resources deciding what to do next. You simply move from one intentional action to another. This creates stability. Stability calms the nervous system. A calm system learns faster, adapts better, and resists impulse more effectively. Structure also exposes discipline gaps. When time blocks are clear, avoidance becomes visible. You can no longer claim you are busy when you are unfocused. You can no longer blame confusion when the plan is simple. Structure does not punish. It reveals. And what it reveals gives you the opportunity to correct. Repetition is where identity is forged. One action means nothing. Repeated action becomes habit. Habit becomes behavior. Behavior becomes self-image. Most people underestimate repetition because it feels unimpressive. There is no dramatic moment where repetition announces success. It works quietly beneath awareness until one day you realize you are no longer trying to be disciplined. You simply are. Repetition teaches the nervous system what is normal. When you repeat calm behavior under pressure, calm becomes your default. When you repeat effort without reward, patience becomes your nature. When you repeat self-control in small moments, self-control appears automatically in larger ones. This is how identity shifts without force. Inspiration tries to skip this process. It convinces you that clarity is enough, that a strong emotion can override years of habit. Sometimes it works briefly, but without silence, inspiration becomes noise. Without structure, it becomes scattered effort. Without repetition, it fades into memory. Silence, structure, and repetition work together. Silence clears space. Structure fills that space with intention. Repetition solidifies intention into identity. Remove one element and progress slows. With all three, change becomes inevitable. This is why environments matter. A noisy environment weakens silence. A chaotic schedule destroys structure. Inconsistent behavior breaks repetition. To rebuild identity, you must design conditions that support it. This does not require extreme measures. It requires conscious adjustment, fewer distractions, clear routines. non-negotiable practices. As repetition continues, resistance decreases. Not because tasks become easier, but because the mind stops questioning them. When something is repeated enough, it becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear is often mistaken for lack of motivation. In truth, people avoid action because uncertainty feels unsafe. Repetition removes uncertainty. Over time, you stop seeking inspiration. You respect it when it comes, but you no longer depend on it. You understand that inspiration is a visitor, while discipline is a resident. You build your life around what stays, not what comes and goes. Identity rebuilt this way is resilient. It does not collapse under stress. It does not require external validation. It does not panic when results are slow. It is rooted in behavior, not emotion. When challenges appear, this identity responds instead of reacts. Silence teaches you who you are without performance. Structure teaches you how to move with intention. Repetition teaches you to trust yourself. Together, they create a version of you that is consistent, grounded, and difficult to disturb. The greatest changes in life rarely begin with a spark. They begin with quiet mornings, repeated actions, and a schedule that does not care how you feel. When these elements are in place, inspiration becomes unnecessary. Identity rebuilds itself through what you do every day, not what you hope to do, not what you feel capable of, but what you actually repeat when no one is watching. Discipline removes options, so your energy stops leaking. Most people believe exhaustion comes from doing too much, but in reality it comes from deciding too much. Every option you keep open drains attention. Every unnecessary choice fragments focus. Energy is not lost through effort. It is lost through indecision. Discipline closes doors, so force can move forward instead of spreading thin in every direction. An undisciplined life is filled with constant micro choices. When to wake up, whether to train or skip, what to eat, when to start, when to stop, whether to focus or distract. Each decision seems small, but together they create mental fatigue. By the time real work appears, energy is already depleted. Discipline removes these questions in advance. When rules are clear, the mind rests. Action begins immediately. Options feel empowering, but they are deceptive. Too many options weaken commitment. When everything is possible, nothing is stable. You keep one foot in and one foot out, always preserving an escape route. Discipline removes escape routes. This is not punishment. It is clarity. When there is no alternative, the mind stops resisting and starts adapting. Energy leaks most when attention is divided, switching tasks, checking notifications, reacting to emotions, reconsidering decisions already made. Each shift pulls energy away from depth. Discipline narrows attention. It tells you where to place your effort and where not to. This narrowing creates intensity. Intensity is not aggression. It is concentration sustained over time. People often confuse discipline with rigidity. They imagine strict schedules and joyless routines. True discipline is selective rigidity. It is firm where it matters and flexible where it does not. You do not need to control everything. You need to control the few behaviors that shape everything else. When those are fixed, the rest organizes itself naturally. Removing options also removes temptation. When something is not available, it stops demanding attention. A fixed wake-up time eliminates the debate of sleeping in. A scheduled training hour eliminates procrastination. A defined work block eliminates distraction. The impulse may still appear, but it has less leverage. There is no decision to negotiate. This is why discipline feels freeing after the initial resistance. At first, the mind rebels because it is used to wandering, but once it understands the boundaries, it relaxes. Just as a river flows faster within its banks, energy moves more powerfully within structure. Without banks, water spreads and stagnates. Without discipline, effort dissipates. Energy also leaks through emotional reactivity. When there are too many options, emotions influence decisions. You work when you feel motivated. You rest when you feel tired. You avoid when you feel uncomfortable. Discipline breaks this pattern. It separates behavior from mood. You act according to commitment, not emotion. This preserves energy because emotions no longer dictate direction. Discipline simplifies identity. Instead of constantly asking who you are and what you want, your actions answer for you. You become someone who trains daily, who works deeply, who rests intentionally. Identity no longer requires thought. This reduces internal conflict. Internal conflict is one of the greatest energy drains, even when nothing external is happening. Another hidden leak comes from unfinished tasks. Open loops occupy mental space. When you start many things without finishing, attention remains fragmented. Discipline prioritizes completion. It limits how much you begin so you can finish what matters. Completion releases energy. It creates momentum. Momentum reduces effort for the next action. Discipline also protects recovery. When rest is scheduled, guilt disappears. When work is structured, rest becomes real. Without discipline, rest is polluted by anxiety and work is polluted by distraction. With discipline, both have their place. This balance preserves long-term energy instead of burning it in cycles of overwork and avoidance. Many people wait for clarity before committing. Discipline reverses this order. Commitment creates clarity. When options are removed, the mind focuses on execution instead of evaluation. You stop asking if something is right and start asking how to do it well. This shift saves enormous mental energy. Discipline is not about controlling life. It is about controlling leakage. Every boundary you set keeps energy inside the system. Over time, this accumulated energy becomes strength. Strength becomes confidence. Confidence reduces hesitation. Hesitation is another major leak. The reason discipline changes lives quietly is because it works below the surface. No one sees the decisions you no longer have to make. No one sees the temptations you no longer entertain. But they see the results of concentrated energy, consistent output, calm presence, reliable performance. When discipline removes options, effort becomes clean. There is no wasted movement, no second guessing, no scattered attention, just deliberate action repeated daily. This is not about becoming extreme. It is about becoming efficient with yourself. A disciplined life is not smaller. It is sharper. Fewer options, more power. Fewer distractions, deeper focus. Fewer emotional swings, steadier energy. What looks restrictive from the outside feels expansive from within. If your energy feels constantly drained, examine how many decisions you are forcing yourself to make each day. Examine how many options you keep open out of fear, comfort, or habit. Each unnecessary option is a leak. Discipline closes the leaks one by one until energy finally has enough pressure to move your life forward. Pain is not the enemy, avoidance is. Pain is a signal, a teacher, a necessary friction between who you are and who you are becoming. Avoidance is what turns that signal into suffering. Most people are not destroyed by pain itself. They are weakened by the constant effort to escape it. Running consumes more energy than facing. Hiding requires more strength than standing still. Pain appears whenever growth demands change. Physical training creates pain as muscles adapt. Mental discipline creates pain as old habits resist correction. Emotional honesty creates pain as truth replaces comfort. None of this pain is accidental. It is evidence of expansion. Avoidance interrupts this process. It delays adaptation and multiplies discomfort over time. The human mind is efficient at one thing, protecting the present state. It interprets discomfort as danger, even when the discomfort is constructive. This is why the first instinct is distraction. Scroll, eat, postpone, rationalize. These behaviors do not remove pain. They defer it. Deferred pain accumulates interest. What could have been sharp and brief becomes dull and constant. Avoidance feels good in the moment because it restores familiarity. Familiarity calms the nervous system temporarily, but the relief is false. Each avoided action reinforces fear. Each delay strengthens the belief that you cannot handle discomfort. Over time, this belief becomes identity. Start seeing yourself as someone who needs ease to function. That identity is fragile. Pain, when faced directly, does the opposite. It builds trust. Every time you remain present with discomfort and survive, your system updates. It learns that pain is tolerable. That effort does not equal danger. That you are capable of enduring more than you assumed. This learning cannot happen through thought. It happens through exposure. Avoidance narrows life. You start choosing paths based on comfort instead of value. You avoid difficult conversations, challenging work, disciplined routines, and honest self-reflection. Life becomes smaller, safer, and emptier. The irony is that avoidance creates the very pain it tries to escape. Regret, stagnation, anxiety, and dissatisfaction grow in the absence of challenge. Pain faced voluntarily has a limit. Pain avoided spreads. When you train the body, the discomfort ends after adaptation. When you train the mind, resistance fades with repetition. But when you avoid, there is no adaptation. The pain becomes chronic. It leaks into sleep, focus, and relationships. It becomes background noise that never resolves. People often confuse self-care with avoidance. Rest is not avoidance. Rest is intentional recovery after effort. Avoidance is escape without effort. Rest restores capacity. Avoidance erodes it. One builds resilience. The other builds fragility. Learning to tell the difference is essential. Pain also clarifies priorities. When something is difficult, it forces you to decide if it matters. Avoidance keeps everything vague. You stay busy without direction. Pain demands commitment. It asks whether you are willing to pay the cost of growth. Every meaningful outcome has a cost. Avoidance tries to negotiate a discount that does not exist. There is also pain in discipline. Waking early hurts. Consistency hurts. Saying no hurts. But this pain is clean. It has direction. It leads somewhere. Avoidance creates dirty pain, guilt, shame, self-doubt. Pain without progress. Pain without purpose. When you stop avoiding, something unexpected happens. Pain loses its intensity. Not because it disappears, but because you stop amplifying it with fear. Fear adds layers. Fear imagines worst outcomes. Fear creates tension. When fear is removed, pain becomes information. Information can be worked with. This shift changes your relationship with struggle. You stop asking how to avoid difficulty and start asking how to move through it. You stop dramatizing discomfort and start observing it. Observation creates distance. Distance reduces suffering. Avoidance is often disguised as intelligence. You tell yourself you are waiting for better timing, more clarity, more confidence. But confidence does not come before action. It comes from surviving discomfort repeatedly. Clarity comes from engagement, not retreat. Pain reveals character. Under pressure, habits surface. Values are tested. Avoidance hides character. It keeps you unchallenged and unmeasured. But growth requires measurement. You need resistance to know your strength. The goal is not to seek pain. The goal is to stop fearing it. When pain appears, meet it with presence. Ask what it demands. Often it demands patience, effort, or honesty. These demands are reasonable. Avoidance exaggerates them into threats. Over time, facing pain becomes natural. You do not rush toward it, but you do not turn away. You remain steady. This steadiness becomes your advantage. While others retreat at the first sign of discomfort, you continue. Progress accumulates quietly. Pain is temporary when faced. Avoidance is permanent until confronted. Every avoided action waits for you. Every postponed decision remains unresolved. Nothing disappears. It either transforms through engagement or haunts through neglect. When you understand this, pain stops being the enemy. It becomes a gatekeeper. It stands between who you are and who you could be, asking for effort as the price of entry. Avoidance walks away and calls the gate unfair. Facing pain opens it and steps through. When your inner order shifts, the outer world has no choice but to respond. Life mirrors structure. It does not respond to intentions, wishes, or words, but to alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, the environment adjusts. Not because the world is generous, but because consistency creates pressure, and pressure creates movement. Most people try to change the outer world first. They chase better circumstances, different people, more opportunities. They wait for external permission to become disciplined, confident, or focused, but the outer world is reactive. It reflects what you repeatedly demonstrate. Chaos invites chaos. Clarity invites clarity. Disorganization attracts friction. Order attracts flow. Inner order begins with attention. Where your attention goes determines what grows. When attention is scattered, results scatter. When attention is focused, progress compounds. This is not abstract. Focused attention changes how you speak, how you listen, how you move, how you decide. People respond to that shift immediately, even if they cannot explain it. Emotional regulation is another pillar of inner order. When emotions control behavior, life becomes unpredictable. Reactions replace responses. Small triggers create large consequences. When you learn to observe emotions without acting on them, stability appears. Stability is magnetic. Others trust it. Opportunities favor it. Conflict avoids it. Inner order also requires clear standards. What you accept determines what stays. When standards are vague, boundaries blur. Time is wasted. Energy leaks. When standards are firm, decisions become simple. You say yes with conviction and no without guilt. This decisiveness alters how others treat you. Respect follows clarity. Consistency is the visible signal of inner order. Anyone can act disciplined for a day. Few do it daily. Daily behavior communicates reliability. Reliability builds reputation. Reputation shapes opportunity. The world responds not to potential, but to pattern. As inner order strengthens, self-respect grows. Self-respect changes posture, tone, and presence. You stop chasing approval. You stop over-explaining. You stop tolerating what weakens you. These changes are subtle, but they are noticed. People adjust. Some pull closer. Others fall away. Both responses are correct. When your inner world is ordered, your time becomes ordered. You stop reacting to urgency and start acting on priority. This reduces stress and increases effectiveness. Stress repels opportunity. Effectiveness attracts it. The outer world responds by offering better outcomes for the same effort. Order also sharpens perception. You see inefficiencies quickly. You recognize patterns. You anticipate problems. This makes you valuable. Value is always rewarded in some form. Not immediately, but inevitably. Chaos hides value. Order reveals it. Relationships shift when inner order changes. You communicate more clearly. You listen more fully. You do not project unresolved tension onto others. This reduces conflict. Reduced conflict creates space for trust. Trust deepens connection. The quality of your interactions improves because the quality of your internal state has improved. Work responds to inner order as well. Focused effort produces cleaner results. Cleaner results earn responsibility. Responsibility leads to influence. Influence expands options. None of this requires manipulation. It is the natural consequence of reliability applied over time. Many people mistake this process for luck. They see someone's life improve and assume timing, or fortune played the main role. They do not see the internal reorganization that preceded the external shift. They do not see the habits corrected, the standards raised, the emotions mastered. Inner order does not make life easy. It makes life efficient. Problems still arise, but they are addressed directly instead of avoided. This prevents accumulation. Accumulated problems overwhelm. Addressed problems strengthen competence. Competence changes outcomes. As your inner world becomes quieter and more structured, noise loses influence. Opinions carry less weight. Distractions lose appeal. You are harder to manipulate because your values are clear. This autonomy alters how systems interact with you. You become less reactive and more deliberate. Deliberate individuals shape environments. The outer world cannot ignore consistent signals. When you show up prepared, you are trusted. When you act calmly under pressure, you are relied upon. When you follow through, you are given more. These responses are automatic. They do not require persuasion. This is why inner work is not self-indulgent. It is strategic. Ordering the mind, regulating emotion, and aligning behavior is the most direct way to influence reality. Everything else is indirect. When inner order shifts, effort feels different. You are no longer pushing against yourself. Energy moves forward instead of in circles. This forward motion becomes visible. Momentum attracts support. Support accelerates progress. The world responds to what is stable, consistent, and clear. When you become those things internally, the response is unavoidable. Opportunities align. Resistance decreases. Outcomes change, not because the world suddenly cares, but because you have become someone who can meet it effectively.